What's good, YouTube? This is GoblinHands showcasing a dark Fiend deck today. It is Unchained, which is a very interactive and somewhat competitive deck. It's very powerful. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. It uses some of the level 8 most powerful Fiends in the game, including Abominable Unchained Soul and Unchained Soul of Disaster. So these cards are both very useful in the deck. If you happen to draw your Unchained Abominable Soul or search it, you could special summon it from your hand or graveyard, and when it's summoned you could discard an extra card in order to destroy a third card on the field. And then also with your Unchained Soul of Disaster, you could use your opponent's link monsters in order to link summon. So it's very useful to have one copy of. However, it's not the best draw, so that's why I have one copy in the deck. And then we do have 3 copies of Unchained Twins Aruha. This is my favorite starter for the deck. With this card, when you have any other card in your hand, you could destroy it to special summon this from your hand, and when any of your Unchained monsters are destroyed by a card effect, you get to summon a Unchained monster from your deck. So yeah, this card makes it so you can start your plays without actually having a normal summon. It's very useful. And we do have 2 copies of Unchained Twins Rakia. So just like the last Twins, this card usually searches out your other Unchained monsters. You'll notice a theme going on. They're level 3 smaller Fiends, as well as level 8 bigger Fiends. So you do want to summon out your bigger Fiends using the level 3 ones. This one has a quick effect. On your opponent's turn, or during your turn, you can destroy one of the cards that you control in order to special summon an Unchained monster from your deck. So it does require normal summon, however it's very powerful. But it's not the best starter like Aruha. So that's why I only have 2 copies. But I do have 2 copies of Unchained Twins Sarama. So this card is a great recovery card. If you have an Unchained monster in the graveyard, you could target it and destroy another card you control and add that card to your hand. So it could recycle some of your spells, traps, or monsters. Very powerful in the deck. You could even use 3 copies if you want, but it's not the best starter, so that's why I have 2. And then I do have 2 copies of Psychic Wielder. So if you have a level 3 monster, this card becomes live. You could special summon it from your hand, and you could use it for a Link Synchro or Exceed Summon. If you use it for a Synchro though, you get to destroy an extra card your opponent's controls equal to that Synchro monster's attack or less. So it's very useful. And then I do have 2 copies of Tour Guide from the Underworld. This card lets you summon your Unchained monster from your deck, but its effect is negated. However, the Unchained graveyard effects are not negated. So it's very useful for summoning out your Unchained monsters. However, I like to summon out Doomdog Octros for it. So when Doomdog Octros is sent to the graveyard, you get to add any level 8 Fiend from your deck to your hand. So that includes your Abominable Unchained Soul. And it also includes Lava Golem.
I'm about to call forth an extremely powerful beast. Lava Golem allows me to sacrifice 2 monsters on your side of the field.
You're kidding me!
Look on the bright side. I said Lava Golem stays on your side of the field.
Lava Golem is very useful in the deck because you don't need to use your normal summoning. You could actually play your combo plus use Lava Golem. And yeah, it's very useful. If it goes to the graveyard, however, it still is useful thanks to the card known as Dark Spirit of Banishment.
You didn't choose the possessed monster, but no matter. I have a card to change all that. You've triggered my trap card, Dark Spirit of the Silent. This card instantly stops your magnet warriors from attacking me. Did you honestly believe I'd let you attack my life points directly, Yugi? Never. And there's more. Once my trap card stops your warrior.
So one of Bakura's cards does fit in this deck very well. All your level 8 Fiend monsters, once they go to the graveyard, this card becomes live. If your opponent declares an attack, it could be a direct attack or against a monster, you could discard this card and redirect the attack to the level 8 monster in your graveyard. So that would resummon that level 8 monster for free. Plus, this monster would go back to your hand so you could reuse it later on. It's a hard once per turn, but it's very useful in the deck. And it's also a level 3 too. That couldn't hurt. Moving on to spells and traps, we do have 3 copies of Wailing of the Unchained Souls. So this card is one of the best spells in your deck. Like all the Unchained spells and traps, if they do get destroyed, they do float into all of your other Unchained monsters. However, if you do link summon while this card is on the field, you get to destroy any card on the field. So it could be a spell, trap, or monster effect, including Mystic Mind, for example. And then we do have 3 copies of Abomination's Prison. It's probably the best card in the deck. You could search out any card from your deck for the most part. However, it itself is not that easy to get access to. But yeah, it's very useful in the deck. So that's why you definitely want to have the deck at 40 so you can draw that more easily. And we do have 3 copies of Supply Squad. So this card, it does stack per copy, so you could have 2 copies of this. And every time you destroy one of your monsters, you get to draw a card per copy. And that includes your opponent's turn as well as your turn. So you could be drawing 2 or 3 cards every turn based on the amount of Supply Squads you have. Very useful. And then we do have 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More. So this card would shut down all of your opponent's effect monsters, so you could use them for your link summons. Plus it has a picture of Dark Ruler Hades, which is another powerful Fiend monster. You might as well use Fiend cards in a Fiend deck, right? And then speaking of Fiends, we do have Dark Sanctuary.
Watch as the entire playing field is engulfed in a shroud of dark magic, known as Dark Sanctuary. You have no idea what you've just helped me to unleash. Prepare to experience an evil like you've never seen before.
It fits pretty nice in the deck because your Dark Spirit of Banishment is actually activated during the battle, during the damage calculation. So you could actually use your Dark Sanctuary first and flip a coin. If you don't call it right, then you could proceed to use your Dark Spirit of Banishment as a follow-up play just to get a guarantee so your opponent's attack does not go through. However, it does add an extra win mechanic just by inflicting a lot of burn damage to your opponent. So it's very useful. I do have 1 copy of Called by the Grave to use against Ash when you're trying to summon your Fiends from the deck. And then moving on to traps, we do have 3 copies of Abominable Chamber of the Unchained. So this card allows you to float into any of your Unchained, just like the Wailing and the Abomination's Prison. However, it also has an extra effect, which lets you revive one of your Unchained monsters, just like a Call of the Haunted. It's very useful. Kind of slow for the main effect, however, you're usually using it to destroy with your other Unchained monsters to summon from the deck. And just like that card, you have 2 copies of Escape from the Unchained. So usually you're just destroying this to trigger off its effect to summon from your deck. However, it has another effect. You could destroy one of your Unchained cards plus one of your opponent's cards. So that effect in particular is not as good as the others, so I feel like 2 copies is good. However, you can use 3 if you want. And then to wrap things up, I do have 2 copies of Needle Sealing and 1 copy of Skill Drain. So Needle Sealing is really good this format because unlike Torrential Tribute, you actually don't have to wait until your opponent normal summons or special summons. You could activate it whenever you want. So once you set it and a turn goes by, it's basically live at any point in the duel. And your Unchained monsters actually trigger from your own destruction effect, so it's double as good in this deck. You could also avoid that by setting your monsters too, if you want. So yeah, it's a very skillful kind of card. It's very interesting. From Pharaonic Guardian. Maybe we'll get a nice holo reprint someday. We do have the Skill Drain. Skill Drain does not hurt your deck that much because your Unchained monsters have graveyard effects, plus you do have a lot of 3,000 body monsters that you can summon from your deck. So yeah, it's very useful in the deck for the most part. Alright, moving on to the extra deck, we do have 2 copies of Unchained Soul of Rage. So this is one of the best monsters in the deck because it has a quick effect which allows you to use your opponent's monsters in order to link summon on either player's turn. So this is a link 2, so you could summon a link 3 easily or higher depending on your opponent's link monster. But you do only have a hard once per turn access to that effect. However, you do have Unchained Soul of Anguish. So usually you're turning that monster into this, and it does have a similar effect, except it's only on your turn. So you could use one of your opponent's cards for another base summon into a Link 4. But yeah, it's pretty good. Both of these monsters, if they're destroyed, you get to add an Unchained or Fiend monster from your graveyard to your hand, so they both float in their own ways. And then we do have the final evolution of that, which is Unchained Abomination. This card gets you an extra possible 3 forms of destruction. One during your end phase, one if you destroy a card from your opponent's side of the field by effect, and I think another one if you destroy by battle. So it's really powerful to have. Plus they're all Fiends. Unchained do lock you into Fiends, so you do want to have access to the most powerful Fiends in the game. And speaking of Fiends, you do have the Nightmare package, Phoenix, Cerberus, and Unicorn. Spell Trap and any card effect, any card you could destroy with these cards. So they are all Fiends, so very useful. And then you do have 2 copies of the Topologics. When they're summoned on your opponent's turn, you get to banish all spell and traps your opponent controls if it is a Trisbania, as long as there's a monster that's summoned to that zone. And if it's Zeroboros, which is the Link 4, it would banish all cards, so spell, trap, monster. But the difference is they're Link materials, and you just want to have access to both of them. So they're both really good. We do have 1 copy of Borrelsword Dragon. You could use whatever Link 4 you want, honestly, but Borrelsword can win you games, so why not use it? And then finally, we do have the Synchro Monsters. I'm using 1 copy of Coral Dragon. With the Psychic Wheel in there, you could use this in the deck, and it gives you an extra form of disruption against your opponent. When Psychic Wielders sent to the graveyard, you get to destroy a monster with 2,400 attack points. Plus, Coral Dragon lets you discard 1 card from your hand to destroy an extra card. Plus, when this card's sent to the graveyard, you get to draw a card. And similarly, we do have 2 copies of the Phantom Knights of Breaksword. So you could actually use any other card you control, including Phantom Knights of Breaksword, to destroy one of your opponent's cards. But you could use your spell and traps to start your combos going. So yeah, it's really good in the deck. And then we do have 1 copy of Lavier, the Sea Dragon. So if you're playing against a deck that likes to banish your cards, you could recover them and start your plays again. So it's very useful. And topping off the Exceeds, what we have 1 copy of Divine Arsenal AA Zeus Sky Thunder. So this card is very powerful. It sends both players' fields to the graveyard, so it could get over cards like Dragoons. It's kind of pricey, but it's definitely worth the price in Yu-Gi-Oh! I'd say one of the few cards, until it gets reprinted, of course. Alright, moving on to the side deck, we do have 1 copy of Cursed Necrofear. So
I hold a card in my hand with dark powers beyond your wildest imagination. Stare into the face of defeat. Now I summon the beast that will cause your demise. Dark Necrofear. You see, not only is my monster strong, but it also possesses a dark magic hidden within.
So it is searchable, and if you're playing against a deck that banishes your cards, you could recycle those banished Fiends, and then you summon this. And then during the end phase, it resummons itself and destroys cards on the field equal to the amount of spells and traps you control with different names. So because of your supply squads, and Dark Sanctuary, and Wailing of the Unchained Souls, you get a few extra forms of destruction. And similarly, we have 1 more copy of Lava Golem, so both of these are searchable. Just in case one of your Lava Golems gets destroyed or banished, you do want to have access to another one. So that's why I have 2. And then we do have 3 copies of Gadarla, the Mystery Dust Kaiju against Barrier Statue of the Stormwinds. And then we do have 3 copies of Arch Nemesis Protos. So this card could be summoned by banishing 3 monsters of any attribute. Your Unchained monsters tend to be Dark, Water, and Fire, so it's very easy to summon. Plus, you could declare a different attribute and destroy all monsters on the field with that attribute, and your opponent can't summon anything with that same attribute until their end phase. So if you're playing against a deck that uses Light or Dark, for example, it's very powerful. We do have 2 more copies of Dark Hole. Dark Hole is pretty good in this deck because it triggers off your Unchained monsters Plus, it could destroy your opponent's cards, and usually your opponent doesn't see spell and trap removal that often. Maybe Lightning Storm, but it usually catches them off guard. And then finally, we do have cards to disrupt your opponent's back row. 3 copies of Denko Sekka, and 1 copy of Red Reboot and Harpy's Feather Duster. All blowout cards against back row decks. So because you don't need your normal summon, you could use cards like Denko Sekka and Winged Dragon of Raw Spear Mode without having too much worry. So very powerful. Alright, and that's pretty much it for the deck today. Thank you so much for joining me, and if you have any combos you could think of or any cards you recommend, just let me know in the comments below. Thank you again. Like, comment, subscribe. Happy dueling. Goodbye.
It can't be!
You want my Millennium Puzzle? Then you're going to have to duel me for it. But if I win, you'll release my friends and send us all back.
I agree to your ridiculous terms, Yugi. But I promise you, there is more at stake here than you comprehend. And this is one shadow game that you cannot win!